Paulina listened carefully as her stepmother negotiated her sale with a mysterious wealthy neighbor who had recently moved to the area. The poor girl knew absolutely nothing about this man. How could her stepmother be involved in something so cruel? Paulina's future was now in the hands of a complete stranger, and his true intentions would surely shock her. There was a time in the past when family issues, even if they were difficult and abusive, were resolved within the confines of the family. During that time, there lived a little girl named Paulina. At the tender age of 8, she lived in a villa with her family. The house they lived in was modest, but the land surrounding it was vast, providing the child with ample space to create games and live thrilling adventures. It would be any child's dream if it weren't for one crucial detail. Paulina's family was not exactly what one would call peaceful and welcoming. Her father seemed to be frequently under the influence of alcohol and rarely remembered that he had a daughter. Paulina's mother had passed away during childbirth, and her father had remarried. However, Lena, the stepmother, couldn't stand Paulina's presence. To her, the girl was like an uncomfortable reminder of her husband's past, a reminder that filled her with deep jealousy. All this resentment was unjustly directed toward the little girl. The family lived in precarious conditions, sustaining themselves with the modest production of milk from the animals they raised on their vast property. What they managed to earn barely covered their food expenses, and they often relied on the charity of others to survive. Making the situation even worse, Paulina's father often took the money from the daily milk sales and spent it all at the town bar. The situation became even more challenging because her father would often spend entire nights drinking and couldn't wake up in time to milk the animals. On those occasions, little Paulina took on the responsibility of the task. Even before the sun rose, she would get up, put on her boots, and face the early morning cold. Her frail body could hardly carry the buckets, and she relied on a small cart to transport the milk drum to the property gate, where the truck would come to collect the daily production. While the sun was still rising on the horizon, Paulina had already milked the animals, fed them, cleaned their sleeping area, and let them out into the enclosure. After completing all the tasks, it was time to have just a glass of milk and head to school. It was a roughly 40-minute walk that Paulina took with great anticipation because at school, she could finally be a child. At home, she took on responsibilities that adults neglected, but at school, her heart filled with joy and freedom. On that day, when Paulina was returning from school, something immediately caught her attention. At the top of a small hill next to her family's land stood the old mansion, and she noticed some unusual activity there. That mansion had remained closed for many years. Paulina, at 8 years old, had never seen anyone living there. The legends surrounding the mansion said it was haunted, and the girl never dared to get close because she had grown up hearing stories about ghosts supposedly inhabiting the abandoned property. In the following days, the activity at the mansion continued. Furniture was being delivered, and workers were painting and restoring the old building. It seemed like someone was finally about to move into that house that had been empty for so long. Then everything quieted down. Paulina no longer saw workers, and the intense commotion had stopped. However, she began to notice lights on in the house, indicating that despite the apparent tranquility, someone was definitely living in the mansion. On a cold and dark early morning, while Paulina was tending to her chores with the animals, she saw a light on in the mansion and noticed the shadow of a person visible in one of the windows. This mysterious figure seemed to be watching Paulina. For a brief moment, Paulina was distracted from her tasks and accidentally spilled a small amount of milk on the floor. Surprisingly, Lena, the girl's stepmother, who was usually asleep at this hour, but had woken up early that day to go to town, saw the spilled milk on the floor, and scolded Paulina harshly. "What do you think you're doing, you useless girl? Do you have any idea that this milk is our sustenance? Today you won't have a glass of milk because your portion was wasted on the floor." The glass of milk before school was the only food Paulina had in the morning, and now she would have to face school on an empty stomach. However, the stepmother had more unpleasant news for the poor girl. "And one more thing. Today you won't go to school," said the stepmother with a stern expression. "I've taken some clothes to wash, but I have an appointment. You'll be responsible for this task, and hurry up because it's for the man who lives in the mansion up on the hill. He'll come in the afternoon to pick them up." Paulina, helpless and with an empty stomach, was paralyzed by this new responsibility. Going to school was one of the few joys that the suffering girl still had in life. Even with an empty stomach, Paulina rushed to wash all the clothes in the morning. There were sheets, towels, and some dresses. As she worked, Paulina began to deduce that in addition to the man, there was also a woman living in the mysterious mansion. The little girl hung the clothes on the clothesline to dry in the sun. Her young hands were marked and calloused from the constant effort she put in to help at home. Despite facing difficulties, she never failed to complete her tasks with determination. Clothes to be washed kept coming, and Lena always assigned the task to Paulina. She no longer attended school, and her responsibilities with the animals were now definitely her duty. In the early mornings, she continued to feel the gaze coming from the mysterious mansion atop the hill. Someone was watching her, and she was about to discover the reason for this interest from the mysterious observer. It was a peaceful afternoon, and Paulina had finished ironing all the clothes. That's when she heard an argument coming from outside the house. The protagonists were her stepmother Lena and the mysterious man from the mansion. "The last clothes you handed me were not properly ironed," the man complained with a tone of dissatisfaction. "It was my useless stepdaughter who didn't leave the clothes well pressed." Lena replied in her defense. "I'm not paying you to have a child do my laundry," the man retorted, clearly irritated. "I've been busy in the past few days, so the girl had to do some chores. After all, she only costs me money. Every now and then, it's good for her to do something," Lena argued indifferently. "Something. I see her every day in the early morning, taking care of the animals and doing all the tasks that should be yours and your husband's, and you say something like that," the man replied, revealing his indignation with Paulina's situation. "You seem very interested in defending that useless brat," Lena said with a tone of disdain. The man, visibly moved by Paulina's situation, responded with empathy. "She's just a child. She shouldn't be working. She should be in school." It was then that Lena made a confession that left Paulina, who was listening to the argument from afar, surprised and shocked. "You know what?" Lena began. "I have a proposal for you. My husband and I are planning to move away from this backwater place. We were going to leave the girl behind because she's a burden in our lives. However, since you seem so interested in her, how about I sell you the girl?" Paulina, hidden and listening to the conversation, could hardly believe what she was hearing. Her life was about to take a completely unexpected and terrifying turn. Paulina's shock was amplified when the man accepted Lena's proposal. Paulina listened as they negotiated the deal's value. The man agreed to buy not only the girl, but also the family's property and all the animals they owned. He promised to have all the documents and money ready in 2 days. The agreement was sealed, and in the following days, Lena and Paulina's father were jubilant. Her father had bought drinks, and the two of them indulged in a frenzied celebration commemorating the deal they had made. However, They had no idea that Paulina had overheard the entire conversation. After 2 days, Lena and Paulina's father packed all their belongings and placed them in the old wagon. They told the girl that they were going on a short trip, but Paulina knew the truth. Her heart was filled with anguish, because the destiny that awaited her was uncertain and terrifying. One morning, a man named Mr. Roy appeared at the family's house. He carried an envelope with money and demanded that Paulina's father sign a document transferring custody of the girl to him, in addition to the property sale contract. He then handed the money to the ambitious couple, finalizing the agreement that would drastically change Paulina's fate. The unscrupulous couple left, leaving Paulina behind. "It looks like it's just you and me now, Paulina," said the man. Mr. Roy then took Paulina to his mansion. When she entered, she couldn't believe the beauty of the place. It was well lit, welcoming, and radiated a joy that starkly contrasted with her old home. That mansion didn't seem haunted at all. Quite the opposite, it seemed full of life. As soon as she entered, a cat greeted her, rubbing against her legs in a friendly manner. The feeling of warmth and comfort was overwhelming, something Paulina had never experienced before. "Come, I want you to meet someone," said the man, guiding Paulina to the living room of the house, where a young woman was sitting comfortably in an armchair. "This is my wife, Margarita." Paulina had already suspected that there was a woman living in that house, as she had washed some women's dresses before. However, the girl was confused because she couldn't understand why this man had bought her. The situation was even more intriguing than she had imagined. The woman, visibly frail in health, welcomed Paulina with an affectionate smile. Paulina, still a bit perplexed, asked a direct question. "Did you buy me because you want me to work in your house?" The man's answer was surprising and touching. "Not at all, Paulina. I've observed how hard you worked on that farm and was appalled by how Lena treated you. 2 days ago, when she mentioned the idea of abandoning you and offered to sell you to me, I saw an opportunity to get you out of that environment. I have no intention of having you work in our house. In fact, I was sending the clothes for Lena to wash because our housekeeper had some issues and couldn't be present. As you can see, my wife Margarita has fragile health. We moved to this house precisely because of her health, as she would have cleaner air here. We could never have children, and if you're willing, we'd like to raise you as our daughter." Paulina, moved and with tears in her eyes, could hardly believe the turn her life had taken. In the warm embrace of that family, Paulina finally found a true home, love, and protection. She could be a child, attend school, and now, no longer walking alone, she had the protection and care of the couple who welcomed her with all their hearts. Paulina's life had taken an unexpected turn, and she was finally living a childhood full of hope and love. Even when facing unimaginable challenges, we should never lose faith in the possibility of a brighter tomorrow, filled with opportunities to be children, to learn, and above all, to be loved and cared for. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.